Helldive, Chapter 7. We're currently taking on a puker who's forgot his legs. And we just killed a leaper, which is an enemy that we don't want to be interacting with if we can help it. Additionally, speaking of things we don't want to interact with, on this door there's a rather nasty trap involving a body hiding an enemy that I despise. I hate it so much I don't even say its name. But here is a very drunk leaper. You don't often see that. Or maybe you do. I don't know if that was physics or whatever, but it was something that was giving him problems. And then we move into the elevator. A famous sequence on hardcore runs, a sequence that a lot of people have a lot of tension towards and dread. This is a sequence that I had dread towards on my hardcore run as well back in the day, but ever since then I've been okay with it, especially on PC. One thing I must admit though is I don't know much how this works. I just stand in the middle and I just turn around and shoot people. Like, I don't know if you can afford to just shoot them once and maybe they don't attack you. As far as ammo efficiency goes, I could really do more experimentation here. I don't know what's going on in that. That just looks hilarious. He died inside the room. What a beast. But I don't really have anything cool to do here. I don't have anything fancy or flashy or particularly effective other than if you stand on the center plate and you just rotate. I think you're pretty much safe. It's an unexceptional moment for me, having done it a decent amount of times. But what I do know is if you come here with a different weapon, you're definitely going to have an odd time, because you get so used to how effective the plasma cutter is. And the plasma cutter is a very good weapon. It's accurate, it's fast, it's reliable. It is a workhorse of the game. And it's got a legendary reputation because it's that good. Coming up here is a couple of the explosions, the cysts, doing their best impression of apparently not taking a saw blade from a fan, which I think is kind of rough. And something that you could experiment with if you want to have some fun is carrying those explosives into whatever the next encounter is. One of the most fun parts of this project for me was kind of postulating on how I could either combine encounters or bring something to an encounter I wasn't supposed to have. Because if you come to these videos, guys, and you're kind of sad that it's cut up and it's just the action, it's just me spinning around killing everything in the true Helldiver manner, I do have a walkthrough for this game where I go through it 10 years ago when it first came out on Zealot, and I do it as many people do. And then later on, a couple of years later, I think it was 2018, I came back and I did a no upgrade, no damage, no shop, no item run of the game, where I go through the whole game similar to this. However, this one just adds a few more stipulations to it, and it's just a little bit more abridged, a little bit more reduxed and edited. You know, you don't need to see me going through levels you've seen me go through 3 times before in the space of a decade. And especially if you've played it a lot, you don't need it either because, you know, you can play it yourself. But moving onwards here, I really like Chapter 7. It's got some unique fights. This one right here is a really unique fight, and the challenge in this room is trying not to blow the window out and then win the fight. If you can do that, you did well, because the easiest thing in the world in this room is to break the glass. And I like having little moments like this because it forces you to do creative things, like throwing these strange bin-like objects at babies, which if you take the transcript of that and you give it to a judge, I'll probably end up in prison. But this is a video game, and it's science fiction horror at its finest, so instead we're just going to spray their ass everywhere and get on with the puzzle. This is one of the few instances where the checkpoint's not so kind either, because over there where that vent is, there is a leaper. And this monster, dude, this monster's problematic. And it's so funny because you're not going to see it when I'm playing. Did you see that, by the way? This is the trousers enemy. So if you're new to Dead Space and you've never seen this monster before, this particular necromorph does not have a weakness on his leg. Most people who play these games with the strategic dismemberment, they will prioritize the legs to slow the necromorphs down. It's a very good way to play and it's very safe. That enemy is a hard counter to that playstyle. And be very careful coming up here, because if you move too quickly down this corridor towards those enticing lockers, you might lose a hardcore run to a couple of laser traps, which I've always felt are pretty bullshit if you ask me. So there's almost no real way to tell that that's going to happen, and if you're sprinting, even the noise is not going to stop you. And it just seems like a cheap one, that one. There's a few moments in this game where I would say they went a bit cheap. And there's sometimes a spawn here, so be careful of this naked level 1 slasher here. But we don't have to worry too much about that guy as we move on into this sequence with the stalker on the ground And then the Stalker on the back there, here he comes. I do like the 0G moment with the Stalker because you can't hear them right, and you need to hear them. It's the best way to know what they're doing. Speaking of the best way to know what they're doing, if you take this paneling off, be prepared to then fling it back at these acrobatic testicles, which I despise, and then you have your first true enhanced slasher. This guy right here, ladies and gentlemen, this guy's bad news. This guy here is a big fish in a very small pond, and he's coming to introduce you to his mighty fish skills. Luckily, if he comes with anybody else, you can use them to take him out. But never ever underestimate the speed of this monster. When he starts running, he can cover distance like almost nothing else in the game. There's only the leapers that can compare to him, and he is very beefy too, so be very careful of getting beefed. And just be careful here as well if you miss. Missing is one of those things that happens a lot in this game, because it's a very skillful game. And if you watch this and you go back and you play and you've not been on for a while, you'll think that it looks mad easy to, you know, land a lot of the telekinesis moves, and then you start playing and you're like, hang on a second, I'm missing. Which is nice, because it means that you have to earn it. And then this area has the Divider, which you will not see me fight the Divider because I avoid him at all costs. This is one of those enemies that I think aesthetically does not fit the game. I think mechanically it's a great idea, it fits the game, but he looks so fucking weird, dude. He looks really, really strange to me. He looks like that dude from Road Trip. You know the guy who has sex with the black chick? He's like really tall and skinny and looks like he's like lived on meth. Probably a nice person, but like the Divider's essentially that dude in the lab coat. And this room is quite tricky too. It has a lot of diverse enemies, but it's a really fun fight. And there's over there on the wall, you see him? I knew he was going to be there, just waiting on his ass, and there he was. Then we get another one here. So I'm making a mistake there, guys, and I don't know why I do it. I'm shooting at the lurkers with the projectile instead of shooting their weak point. If I shot their weak point with that slasher limb, they would have died because it hits harder, but I have this weird muscle memory of just like grabbing it and firing it and then forgetting. And it only cost me an extra shot or two to put them down. But still, you know, you want to get into good habits with a game such as this. And as much as I'd like to say it's the Helldiver way, it actually isn't, because it's less efficient. And the point of this is to be a scalpel through hell. And then have we got to go outside coming up here? You might be wondering why this is still happening. If you ever see footage like this, it's because the fight's not over. I will always cut away when the fight is over, so when it's still lingering, it tells you there's more to come. But yeah, we have to take on the space balls, don't we? So again, any moment where you're floating in 0G, the mouse fix for the game does not quite work as intended, so you get all of this unwanted acceleration. It feels really bad. But all you have to do here, guys, is you can probably do this without getting rid of this creature, but I think it's just going to be easier to do this, and then after you've killed it, you can take your time and explore, and it's just a lot of fun. And this is one of the hardest fights in the game, which I'm happy to report I got on I think this was the second attempt, and the first attempt only failed because I accidentally grabbed a suitcase instead of what I was trying to grab, which was frustrating. But I forget just how long this fight is. I also forget just how bad the lurkers make it. Not sorry, the lurkers, the leapers. Leapers in this fight are so... they just turn the game off. Like, this would be my favourite fight in the game if they weren't in it. And it's just because as soon as he turns up, if you don't prioritise him, you lose. And everything else is great. I absolutely adore everything else. The small guys, you know, the slashers, the pukers, all of the combination of the monsters I think is really good. But the moment you're distracted and he just does his dive bomb and he comes down on you and smacks you in the mouth, like he's coming here right there. But I got very lucky then taking him out so swiftly. Like, I kind of feel like in a moment such as this, they should have diminished the HP of the leaper so he's not quite as beefy as he sometimes can be. And that's what I love about the elevator. The elevator coming up, guys, is my favourite fight in the game, because it's a fight that's incredibly demanding, but they didn't make you fight the strongest monsters in the world. They give you the jobbers, and it makes you feel really powerful, but you have to be precise, because if you're not precise, you lose. And speaking of losing, when you have to reload and a leaper's running at you, it's scary. It's really scary. Fortunately, I took his arm, so he can't run at me. And I took his head too, which pacified him even more so. And then we just have a puker here trying to ruin the run, and a puker there trying to ruin the run.